Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I was debating whether or not I was going to record a Monday video today. It's Sunday obviously when I'm recording this, and I wasn't really feeling super good today. I took the day off, didn't do any recording, didn't do any streaming. That's actually not entirely true. I actually ended up joining a few of our fellow content creators for an E8 Savage Reclear on Ether. And I think the energy from that just kind of revitalized me enough to do this. But I'm probably going to go take a nap or go straight to sleep after this because it's already kind of late and it's just ick. It's just one of those days where you feel like ick. You guys know those days. So, but, you know, I'm here, so let's answer some questions. Of course, thanks to our patrons first. There's been a lot of new patrons, which is why I feel the need to say again, I shout out these people who are on this list. You're all wonderful for supporting the channel, even through the ups and the downs. But as a reminder, I had a ton of people sign up. It is completely optional. It's the same content you get here on the YouTube channel. It is only to support the YouTube channel. So I like to make that abundantly clear because I don't understand why there would be a surge of them unless I felt like I wasn't communicating that well enough. So just thank you to the people who are there. And of course, thank you to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja on Jenova and Kurenai Oni, who have been big time supporters for a super long time. So thank you to both of you. Thank you to all of our patrons. And if you're not a patron, don't worry. Thank you for coming by, watching the video, liking it, commenting on it. All those things are great too. So with that, let's get to some of those comments and answer some questions. All right, so before I even take this first question, the very first comment on the YouTube video was that any question that has a spoiler tag, to edit it towards the end of the video. I'm going to take that and we're going to do that from now on. I'll still do the thumbs up, thumbs down thing, but I'll do thumbs up when that section is starting as opposed to per question. So thank you for that feedback. We are going to incorporate that. If I see any spoiler questions in this one that I end up taking, we'll put them towards the end of the video. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Good morning, Mrhappy. Dart here. It's been a while since I checked out your channel, but I am back. My favorite healer is Astrologian. I find many parties and raid groups are excluding that healer because it is deemed as bad by the community. I find it to be very effective, and neutral sect is pretty broken. Why does the community target this healer as non-viable? The community doesn't target it as non-viable. It's targeted as most difficult to play. If you are anything shy of perfect on Astrologian, your contribution to the party greatly diminishes, whereas White Mage is very easy to play and is normally the job that Astro is fighting for participation. Not all the time, but the majority of the time it's against White Mage. And with the ease of play and just the raw throughput of White Mage, that's what ends up drawing people to that. Scholar doesn't really have the ease of play, but it's just kind of been the go-to ever since 2.0. It's always been a strong job. It's got one DPS utility. It's got a lot of things that cover a lot of things to the party. But I love having an Astro. I cleared E8 Savage. I think we were Scholar Astro for that, and it was fine. A good Astro is as good as any other healer. I mean, that's true of really everything in Final Fantasy XIV. Even when a job is performing below what like people are talking about, it's like, oh, this job's trash, it's unplayable. Even in those times, a job is still fully capable of completing any content in the game. It's just a matter of jobs. There isn't really much an opportunity to bully jobs in Final Fantasy XIV. So anytime there is one, everyone piles on it, myself included. So it's definitely because of the average Astrologian's execution of play and how much of a good player it requires to play it at that high level. That's the main reason people end up excluding it for the generally deemed easier to play healers like Scholar and White Mage. Next one, hashtag Señor Feliz Lunes. I'm assuming that means Mrhappy Mondays. I know Señor Feliz because that's actually part of the origin of my name. Mrhappy initially was a young me doing Spanish homework, and something I had to say was Mr. Happy Monkey in my Spanish homework. I just took out the monkey part, and bam, you got Señor Feliz. Anyway, first time asker, I was wondering, when did they stop referring legacy players in the main scenario? They used to have different dialogue. They do. It depends on what it is you're doing. Obviously, A Realm Reborn is the biggest time at which it refers to legacy characters because it's immediately preceding the 5-year time skip going from 1.x to 2.x. But whenever it's applicable, they always refer back to old scenes. It's just, at this point, regardless of whether you're a legacy player or someone who started in 2.0 onward, we've been through so many adventures by the time you get to that point that distinguishing that you were the person who was lost in time 5 years prior to Rimley. It just kind of doesn't matter. No one on the first, definitely nobody on the first cares even remotely. The Ascians barely care because of the way the 1.0 story takes place. It's like whatever to them. We weren't really that special in 1.0 compared to 2.x and on. And it's just, it's so far in the past now that it doesn't need to keep coming up in conversation. If it makes sense, they'll do it. But otherwise, it just doesn't, there's no point, really. Alright, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hello. Recently I was considering making another character to do double raids. Do you have any advice for getting a second character through the story? Just general things to make it more enjoyable, less repetitive. Thanks. You want to know what my real advice is going to be, right? Listen, I don't generally encourage skip potions for first characters. Obviously, that's up to the person's discretion. But for second characters, I certainly recommend the skip potions. If you're asking this, clearly that's not how you're thinking of approaching it. I'd say stopping to do roulettes actually breaks up the monotony a great bit. Make sure you're making that character on a preferred world. Also, for the love of God, please do it on a preferred world, or you do not want to suffer any more than you really have to. Yeah, skip potions. I know, it costs money, but that's what I did. Next one, hashtag. See this person's name. Anyway, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, first time asker, and this is something I've been wondering for a while. You said on multiple occasions that 1.x wasn't good, but from everything I've heard, I believe you. My question today is, why did you keep playing it? So I am not a diehard 1.x person, actually. 2.x was actually the promise that made me play more of 1.x. So I played in 1.0. And I played right from release. I got to level 50. It took about 2 months of grinding every day with a set static of players. And we were among the first 10, 15, 20, I don't know, people to hit max level on our first jobs. Literally, I got that first job to 20 and to 50 and I stopped playing. I think I got a couple other ones to 20. I stopped playing until 1.17. I want to say. I think that is when Zamiel Darkhold came out, and I was going through that, doing speed runs of that. I did Fresh Prog in that, and then Ifrit came out in 1.18, Ifrit Hard Mode, and I did a bunch of that, and then I stopped playing again. Then we were told 2.0 was coming, and I logged back in to finish the story, and I didn't even bother with Riven Road Hard Mode. I started working on the Relic Quest in 1.x, and I was just like, this is so boring, I'm not doing this. But I stayed subbed long enough throughout that period of time. Like, as soon as I found out that there was a monthly sub, I actually started paying it. I think I paid it for 3 months. And I got my legacy status from that. So, realistically, only the promise of 2.0 kept me playing at any point. I only played about 6 months of the time that 1.x was available. And even, I think that's stretching. I think my third session was actually only about 3 weeks. So, it's closer to like 5 months, if anything. So, it was terrible. Alright, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. This one from only 10 hours ago. Edited. Hello, hi, hiya. Hello, hello. I asked a question last week about future classes and was incredibly surprised to see my first question ever answered. Figured I would try again with 2 short ones. 1, what was your favorite fight this raid tier? My bet is Ifrit Garuda. So I'm not going to add this to the spoiler section. I won't mention anything Savage specific for anyone, but at this point, it's been almost 2 weeks since it came out. If you haven't done this yet, then I just have to assume it wasn't a priority in the first place. So what was your favorite fight from this raid tier? E8. Almost always for me, the last fight is my favorite fight. I can always pick apart favorites, and I like parts that I like, parts that I don't like. And I am going to be doing that video probably even before I get my E5 Savage guide out, because I'm actually planning 2 or 3 guides for all of the Savages this raid tier, so I can like have different types of guides for different types of players. So even before I get the E5 one out, I'll probably get that out, Monday or Tuesday this week. So yeah, E8 though, is definitely at the top of my list for a lot of reasons. And I am specifically referring to Savage because normal mode, I have an opinion on normal mode, but I also don't really care about my own opinion on normal mode because it's normal mode and it doesn't matter to me very much. And 2, if you could pick a fight from any past game to be a final boss or mini boss, which would you pick to be implemented as a raid trial? As years have gone on, I really like to see them do original things more. Don't get me wrong, I think it's really, really cool when they can very fluidly put something from the past games into the new stuff. That being said, my answer is actually a very easy one, because years and years ago I made a video called "What if Anima was in Final Fantasy XIV?" It's the only video I've ever made where I kind of go against what you hear me say in Mondays a lot, where I'm like, you know, everyone has these ideas and I have them too, and you know, it's like I don't really hold value to my own opinion very much. You know, that whole spiel I've done about when people ask, what do you think about this idea, kind of questions. Basically, it was a video that goes completely against that grain, and it's kind of that making that video is why I feel that way today. But Anima, I'm actually very surprised Anima didn't kind of appear as like a void, not either a void scent or even a sin eater. I had a few people predicting an Anima taking on like a more sin eater-esque quality. And some people, you know, I even still firmly believe that the top half being a sin eater and the bottom half being a void scent, some sort of abomination of that regard is totally possible. But I can't see that not happening. Anima as a boss, I can't see not happening at some point. It is a fan favorite. Anyone who's a fan of 10 generally has, you know, the desire to see Anima as an encounter. And, you know, thinking back to that video, as much as it wasn't like balanced around anything in particular, I think there's a lot of really cool concepts that you can take with Anima and expand upon them to make them a very interesting encounter. But I also think nowadays that Anima is more likely to be like a 24-man boss, maybe in the new Baldesion Arsenal content, something like that. I'm leaning more towards than the 8-man boss I was thinking of way back when. Oh boy, there's a lot of text in this one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. I asked the question, hi to you, but... Oh, no, you know what? I just looked below. Look. Bam, there it is. I saw it. Oh my goodness, there's more text than I thought. I pressed read more and I saw it went down, but it's more than I thought. I asked the question a couple weeks ago about Machinists and range in general being too weak. As an update to that, I think after playing E6 Savage, I might have known how much of a hell some of this tier is for melee, though I still think they err on the weaker side. Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, they have an idea on the back end, but that's not the question anyway. We should get to the question for the week. Question this time is about our new healer in 6.0. Person in my FC really badly wants a melee healer, but I'm not sure how that will work. I think I had a question like this last week. If I didn't have it last week, I definitely had it the week before. I'm almost certain it was last week. The idea of a melee healer, like, don't get me wrong, it exists. I think even I forget what it's called in WoW, fist weaving or something, mist weaving, I don't know. It's not that the concept isn't possible, but the healers in this game need to function at all ranges, essentially. And I can tell you right now that if your healer required melee range to be effective, then it would pretty much guarantee, like, the double melee is already kind of being weaned out of being the norm for Final Fantasy XIV. The 2 melee, 1 range physical, 1 caster. Double caster is becoming a lot more popular nowadays. That would solidify it, because the idea of having more than 4 melee is certainly not something most people want to be dealing with, especially the actual DPS players. But ultimately, a healer needs to be able to function at any range. So melee healer, it's kind of like when people say ranged tank. A tank is going to be standing in the face of the boss. Doesn't mean you can't give them a gun or like a shotgun of some kind, so that their weapon of choice is technically a ranged weapon, but they will not be far away. You understand what I'm saying? So melee healer, it sounds mostly like the fantasy of the fist weaving or whatever it's called in World of Warcraft, and it's totally possible. I don't think they'll ever err on that on that creative idea. I think they'll always kind of have this robed, you know, a traditional mage looking kind of healer, and that's just the way that they're gonna go. There's not really much else to say about that. There's plenty of things they haven't done yet for healers in regards to looking at old school D&D or looking at other MMOs. You know, I love Chloromancer, for example, from Rift, and I don't really think we have anything even close to that, or at least nothing that feels quite like it. Or even Druid from World of Warcraft, or at least old, I don't know how new Druid is. I'm thinking back to like BC Wrath era Druids. I don't really know how to compare it to now. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ideas you could get, but a melee healer is probably not one I'm expecting. I just don't think they've shown a propensity for it. Alright, next one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey, Haps, hope you're doing alright. I'm doing okay. I'm feeling better than I was this morning, at the very least. Quick question for you. I'm getting more in a Savage rating the past couple of tiers with some friends, and we love the feel of Week 1 prog when no one knows what's going on. The question is, do you think that I'm in the wrong for wanting to do blind prog in the Party Finder to maintain that feel for the unknown? Or should we watch video guides as soon as possible? I think you should do whatever you want, but in the Party Finder, after the first couple of days, this kind of thing becomes very difficult. There are certainly people out there who will see that and be like, yeah, that's exactly how I want to do it. But that number diminishes so greatly after the first couple days. My best advice for you, if you're gonna do this with the Party Finder, is you have to treat it like it's, you know, traditional static week 1 prog. Do it the first day, do it the second day. By the third day, it starts to get even tough to do it there. But by the end of the first week, it's monumental to do what you want. But I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to do what you're doing. Blind prog is the most fun prog for me. Just beating a fight when someone's giving you all the answers is not even remotely the same feeling as going in week 1 and maybe picking apart other people's footage if you need like a little bit of a bump, but you still don't fully understand things until you do them. So those don't serve as deep or in depth as just doing the prog in the first place really does. Yeah, I have no problem watching guides, but I noticed Eden's verse, as soon as the guides came out, it's basically expected. Yeah, it's the norm, because at that point, it's 7 people you don't know most of the time, and you want to make sure no one's time is being wasted. Nobody's time is being misused. You want to make sure that all the players are on the same page, and most of the time that page is going to be one that either comes out of a text or video guide. So, yeah, I'd say sticking to the static is probably your definite best bet. But if you want to do, like, you know, week 1 blind prog in the Party Finder, it's possible. It just gets hard after that. Oh, this is a short one. Mr. Hap Pap Map Dap. Hey, Mr. Happy, how's it going? Doing all right. Gonna go get a burrito after this. My question is, are you still planning on finishing Versus videos? Yes. So as an update for anyone who may not know, I had a hard drive. I lost everything on the hard drive. That included footage. That included Photoshop templates. Anything that I normally use to expedite certain processes of my my content creation was lost. It's going to be very apparent on State of the Realm for some people for the next probably couple of weeks. But that doesn't mean it's not being done. One thing that certainly put the caster verses, which was the next one, on hold was red mage buffs that were coming. But the loss of the hard drive was actually the thing that put it dead stop for a little bit. Luckily, I've got an updated video editing software. I was using one that was like a couple years old, and I was afraid to upgrade because all of my, you know, templates that I use were all in that. Because I lost them, I just decided to upgrade. I still need to tweak the settings. If you've seen some of my recent videos, the renders, even though they're 1920 by 1080, they're 60 FPS. The actual quality of the video is much diminished compared to the quality of the video I'm starting with. So I got to look over my rendering, because I copied my rendering process from the old one, and the old ones still could have looked better, but these ones look worse than the old ones, no doubt. So I'm probably going to do double renders and probably try to mess with a few more settings that might not be updated. I also have to see what it's using to render, if it's using the GPU or the CPU. But yes, I'm going to finish the Versus videos. I just, you know, I was stopped for a little bit. Probably after the Savage Guides are done. Next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hello. With the release of 5.2, I've been farming Ruby Weapon Extreme to try and get weapons for Dark and Gunbreaker. After numerous failed attempts for a drop, I got to thinking, with the number of jobs we have now, is it fair that only 1 weapon drops per run? You know, the developers, brought this up, I think when 5.0 came out, actually. I think it was the live letter after 5.0 came out. And they said they are starting to have the same thoughts that you're having, that maybe they need to change something, maybe only make it 5 totems, maybe make everything drop 2 totems. I was really surprised Ruby Weapon didn't drop 2 even with the checkpoint, especially after the misunderstood translation that we had. That it was definitely misunderstood, because I read it one way, but I think the Finnish translation didn't say it quite that way. I think the Finnish translation said something more along the lines of the new relic trial having 2. But you know what? I'm not even going to expect 2 from that. I'm just going to stop reading into how many totems we get. But yeah, the developers are on the same page as you. I think they're seeing that. I think in 6.0, we either see 2 weapons drop, or we see the number of totems required go down to 5. One of those 2 things is almost a definite. I think they also said they might change it to a coffer system. And I see you suggest here 1 weapon drop guaranteed and 1... is completely random. It'd be more likely to have it like the final Savage fight, where it's 1 guaranteed weapon and 1 coffer. I could see them changing to that too, but any mix of these things would be effective, and I think we'll see that in 6.0. Maybe beforehand, but I feel definitely by 6.0. I had to let a very chompy cat guest in. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Oh my goodness, a lot of text. Hey Haps, I hope all is well with you. I'm doing alright. Hopefully you're doing the same. I got a question regarding roulette etiquette. How many wipes from the same problem should you give it before you throw up hands and leave? I was just in a leveling roulette running Don Meg, and we wiped at the second boss because people weren't standing in front of the beams, and the boss killed us. Tank clearly explained the mechanics. I also suggested people stay near the boss. We could break the bindings quickly. Pull the boss, same thing happens. Worse, don't even bother to free themselves. Just kept hitting the boss, took the vines to the face, didn't do anything. Tank said good luck and left. I stayed for another tank, re-explained, and history repeated itself. I didn't say anything, just left kicking myself internally for not doing so earlier. So you and I are kindred spirit. I don't think I'd give up until everyone else gave up. At least one or two other people would have to give up before I gave up, in my own opinion. Because sometimes there are people who just don't care. They don't care, they're incapable of learning. Even the most basic things. There's all sorts of people who play Final Fantasy XIV, and as a content creator over the years, I can get angry out loud. Like, I could say, like, oh my god, please just stand in front of the beam. But in game, I'm not gonna just abandon that person most of the time. There is a limit. I'd say my limit in your situation, if your situation said, okay, the tank explained it, I explained it, we wiped. If one of the people who wasn't doing it correctly suddenly became this, like, arrogant prick, this, like, self-righteous, you know, oh, it's only a game, why you mad? Like, if they just, like, they just got off on you getting upset, they'd probably get off on you leaving too. That's not a great sentence. But I would, at that point, that would be my break point. Is when people who don't do something properly are given advice in at least a reasonable manner, not in an aggressive manner, and not only make no effort to improve, but then berate the people who are doing it correctly. That's my limit, because that's not a person that I should be interacting with. That's just the bottom line. Don't get me wrong. We all have points where, as much as I'm saying this, you totally are going to end up interacting with the person. We're all human. Like, sometimes it's just going to be that time to be like, I'm going to type to this motherfucker so hard, he's not even going to understand. But, you know, when you have the reasonable thing in mind, that situation, I'd keep going, even with the wipes. I'd also probably be a healer, so I could help fix it, but there's only so much you can do on that specific mechanic. It's all on personal limit, man. My break point is someone being an arrogant prick. I think that's my break point on this question. Hashtag Mr. Happy Monday. Sub Haps, how you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. 2 questions for you today. Wow, they're very short questions. Do you think we'll ever get player tattoos as a customization option? So I think there are markings that are technically tattoos. I think they've been asked this generally. So for your initial character creation, I would very rarely expect anything to ever be given to your initial character creation. If you've unlocked a hairstyle, you've unlocked something and it appears on the Fantasia menu, totally different story. But if you're asking tattoos, I don't think they'll ever add to the beginning character creation, other than like the specific markings that are already there. And I don't think they'll add tattoos. I mean, they barely even want to add beards, to be honest. So no, I don't ever expect customization options to get that much more robust than they are now, personally. 2, what are the chances you think of 6.0 going beyond? Aloha, stop digging at the carpet. Your food's right there. I'm in the middle of answering a question and you're being rude, and now your paw's stuck in the carpet because your paw. Aloha, come here. I know, yeah. See, you can't see him, but I can see him. Come here. Come on. What are you doing? Come here. You want to leave that bad, don't you, huh? Normally you do this, and then I pick you up, and then you're part of the... Hey, listen, you're going to be a part of this video, whether you like it or not, buddy. Hey, buddy. Hey, oh, your paw was stuck. See, now you want out, and that's where you're going to go, okay? That's where you're going to go. All right. See, he didn't want to be picked up, and now that whole section's going to stay in the video. Mare City is on my list of places to go, but I mean, Ilsabard we're going to as part of an exploration zone. We still have the New World, which is always a possibility. We've had elements of the New World come to us. But Mare City, yeah, the question is, where is the next big bad? And Mare City is possible. It's kind of like a desolate wasteland. We just kind of don't interact with it. I mean, there's always a new threat that they can be making, even with the whole Zodiark storyline, you know, kind of coming to a close soon. But Mare City is possible. You know, I won't say for certain, but it's, you know, it's possible. All right, next question looks like another short one. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps, how you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Second time asker, no bonus, I'm afraid. No worries. Just a short and simple question today. With the new gear available this tier, what old content that was previously impossible or just incredibly difficult to solo is now going to be possible, and are you going to gear per palette and have a go at any of it? I think someone, I have very few comments on my most recent solo videos. I think someone told me they asked this, and I think it's you. So at this point, there's only one encounter left I think I really need to solo through, and it's A11 Savage. I have actually almost gotten to Enrage on it, so I have an idea of what that solo is going to look like. But I think I need to at least get to like close to I-500 before I think it'll be conceivable. At least the 505 weapon from E8 Savage would be something I'd like to have for that. But other than that, I've done A6, I've done A9, I've done A10. That's 3 of the 4. Actually, A9, I didn't even know if it was going to be possible, so that's an extra one on the list. A4 is still not going to be possible. Nisi just kills you. 5 has another insta-kill regardless of health. It's just a 100 to 0 HP regardless of how much you have. Or if you have Hallowed or anything, there's nothing you can do to stop it. At least not that I've seen. A8 is still a question mark because Gavel realistically is the thing I'm concerned about most, but I need to be able to burst down the Blast Mirage in the second phase quick enough to do that, and then bouncing back and forth between the 2 targets is going to be a very, very big concern there. But I think that one is, at least getting to Gavel should reasonably be possible. Whether or not Gavel is soloable, because it's going to fail. I just don't know what it's going to look like when it does. So right now I'm assuming that's impossible. A12 I'm also assuming the time gates is going to be impossible. Even the ads in the ad phase that tether together, I don't know if that's going to be possible. So A11 is the last big one on the list, and it's doable, but it's very tough. And I think with a little more gear, I think I-500 in particular is going to be the point where that becomes full-fledged possible. If it is possible now, it's going to require such a high level of play that I probably don't have on Paladin. So yeah, and then other than that, I mean, there's nothing else really, unless I want to go and try to solo like 24-man stuff, which I can do. I mean, a lot of the 24, there's some 24-man stuff you can't get past alone, but there's a lot that you can. And then going into Stormblood, Lakshmi would be next, because I think Lakshmi will be possible, but Susanoo is probably not possible, and I don't think anything after Susanoo is going to be possible. Shinryu is actually a big maybe. Shinryu with enough gear and 6.x might be possible. But yeah, I'll keep trying. You know, I don't do much in the way of Heaven on High or Palace of the Dead solos, but this kind of stuff always fascinates me. And at the very least, if I don't do a new fight, I might do an old fight with a different job. So the answer is, yeah, I'm going to gear up and try to finish A11 Savage. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hello. Given the forthcoming condensation of the A Realm Reborn storyline, are there any particular story points you think could be corrected to change fit more in line with the current story trajectory? As far as I know, the story is fairly ironclad, if not too drawn out. I was just curious if there were any glaring plot holes. Closest thing to being a glaring plot hole is stuff regarding Nail's gender before we knew about Eula. But to kind of take a tangent on the question, I don't think they're going to change a single thing about the story. I think they're just going to cut back on the bullshit quests, like the really dumb filler, just needed to give you a quests. I don't think they're going to update any of the dialogue. They certainly aren't going to update the voice act. If they do, and I'm wrong, great. But they've shown such not even an ignorance, but an unwillingness to do things like that with old content. They won't even adjust old hunts because they're like, oh, they're old. We don't need to adjust the health on those. They're old. Just kill them. And then so people go solo the S ranks and stuff instead of it being part of the community effort a lot of the time. And so I just don't see. Expectations are just to reduce the number of quests. Don't expect them to fix any sort of plot holes or story related stuff. So, but the answer is also no, because I think for the most part, yeah, it is fairly ironclad. There's just a few things that they've retconned afterwards, but it's all still canonical, and it doesn't really hurt the story in any particular way. All right, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. How's you doing? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? I'm doing all right. Rating question. Okay, and there's also a bonus one here. Do you think each successive Savage tier should be locked behind the previous tier's 4th raid? E.g., should E5 Savage stay locked until you clear E4? No. Now, I see your reasoning is because it would help players enjoy all the rating content. And we had this technically with Coil. Coil 1 through 5. 5 was required to get to 6. 9 was required to get to 10. There was a lot of feedback from players that said that that wasn't working for them. Now, it did have the effect that you're saying, where players that could at least attempt to enjoy all the raiding content. But generally, if you weren't someone who was clearing it when it was the newest, it was a task. You had to get friends most of the time, the occasional party finder, which would fail most of the time on mechanics. And I think with the way we have normal and savage now, having the double difficulty option, I think that the whole point of interacting with that, if the player wants to do the old raids, they can find a way at some point. You know, a lot of raid groups do go back and unsync or undersize stuff when they're practicing for upcoming raid tiers. It's not all that uncommon for prog groups to do that. But as for should they do it, no, because I think the difficulty gap between the last fight of the previous tier and the first fight of the next tier is not something I would want to subject a player to, that they have to reach this bar. It'd be like if you were going to get on a roller coaster, right? And the roller coaster required you to be like 7 feet tall, but then when you got to the roller coaster, it was like a teacups at Disney World. I don't know. That's the best I can do with that analogy on short notice, but it just doesn't make sense from a skill requirement, I suppose. Bonus question: do you think the previous Savage raid gear should stay relevant? So I've been back and forth on this. I really like crafted gear being relevant. As someone who does a lot of day one prog, I really like getting that instant upgrade. They're like, my world opens up. All the jobs that I had to worry about before, I don't have to. But I totally see what you're saying. The big thing to remember is you don't need crafted gear. It's relevant to people who don't have the money to afford crafted gear. Or if they do have the money, they don't have the money to grab all of it, you know, pentameld it, all that crazy stuff. You know, maybe they just grab a few pieces here and there. It's really only the highest caliber of player that is grabbing everything, pentamelding it all, going nuts with that. The average player is still running 24 mans to get upgrade tokens, or running the hunt, or trying to get all the 460 gear with the uncapped tomes and then upgrade it with the other stuff that we were just mentioned. Like, that is the average player experience, not the player experience that I interact with the most. So it is relevant to a lot of people, but it's also relevant to people that probably aren't going into raid, or if they are, they're doing it very casually. And I think that's fine. I think it's good that there's this clear sort of need and desire for both the 470 gear that comes before it and the 480 gear that the hardcore people are going for in like the first week or so. So, interesting little tidbit. Normally when I see a question that has replies, I'm assuming somebody saw the question and answered it. I checked the replies to this one, and it was thank you for asking it. So I won't make that assumption anymore. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. What's up, Happy? First time asker here. Welcome. How do you feel about the ease of combat that each class has gotten since Heavensward? I feel like every class has become so easy that eventually we get to the point where WoW is at, where you just constantly press 2 buttons until you get a proc and do something else. I know it makes it easier for newer players to get into, but I don't want rotations of each class to become so simplified. It gets boring. I think where we have it now is about where you should always expect to see it. Every job has a gimmick. Every job has a rotation. Every job wants to flow through combat in a certain way, and they want you to be able to avoid enemies or avoid attacks while maintaining that rotation, and that they want that to be what develops the skill gap. I think right now is a very healthy place. New players can get into pretty much any of the jobs, but that doesn't stop you from seeing, and I'm sorry for saying it, terrible players on individual jobs. You know, like, it doesn't stop you, doesn't matter how much you perceive it, that doesn't stop you from finding like the dancer who doesn't believe in using standard step. It doesn't stop you from running into the dragoon who says that it's too difficult to use dragon sight, and that Life of the Dragon, they don't even bother with it. Like, it doesn't stop you from running into those kind of players. So I think you see a very clear a healthy relationship between the ease of the jobs to master for someone who's like really dedicated to it, but how insurmountable it still seems to like some new players. Just expect it to stay about where it is now. I wouldn't expect it to go any less, any more. It's just going to be on a job-to-job basis how difficult people interpret min-maxing those various elements. Alright, this one's a spoiler question. It's a spoiler from a previous expansion, but all the same. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, how are you today? GG on your clears. Thank you. I just did my reclear before this. I was confused about Omega and Hraesvelgr's story, so I was wondering if they're from different planets on the source or if they're from a different shard. So we've actually discussed this on State of the Realm. This is still relatively unclear how our planet functions compared to the actual universe, because clearly there's like 13 instances of there's 13 shards, and then there's the source. So these are like alternate dimensions, and there's like a dimensional pool that you can travel between to get to these. Theoretically, though, the question is, could you fly through space to get to these as well, or are they literally parallel dimensions that all have the same galaxies, the same solar systems, and those are all the same? Or are all those different as well? Like, what exactly was sundered? The running theory, as far as I know it, is that the source exists in the universe. Like, it is like our Earth, essentially. There's the suns and the galaxies and all that. And it's not that those things necessarily don't exist in the other shards, but they're more tangible and they're more part of the the grand scope of things, I suppose. Whereas the shards, which, by the way, there's one big hole in this theory that we'll learn more about in the future. The shards don't have that same depth, I suppose. And they are just literally existing in these, like, vacuumed spaces that are copies of the source. I don't 100% agree with that theory. One big hole in that theory is the fact that Yorha takes place on the first. And if you've played Nier Automata and you know how all 5 endings go, you can assume that unless there's more dimensional stuff at play, which is unanswered at this point, that may have hinted at space travel and other planets existing the same way. But it's hard to say because, clearly events don't all take place the same in every reflection. And if a reflection is sundered, but the rest of the universe isn't, that doesn't make sense either. So, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of questions about this. But for the direct answer, Omega and Hraesvelgrr, Omega comes from an unnamed planet. Not another shard, an unnamed planet in the galaxy or the universe of the source. Hraesvelgrr and Midgardsormr and all of his children come from the Dragon Star, which is also another planet in the universe that the source lives in. Whether or not there are subsequent universes on the other shards, or if they're just seeing like the same universe out in the stars at night, is I think is at this point it's still a complete unknown. All right, next one, hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Mr. Happy. Hope you're doing all right. All right, I'm doing all right. Hope you're doing all right. Hope Aloha's doing all right. Please tell him hi. I will, but he left, so later. Just 2 questions. Are you going to consider able to stream Persona 5 Royal? Yeah, I'm gonna squeeze as much P5R out of the 10 days before FF7 Remake comes out as I can. My concern is that the relics might be releasing the same day as P5R, so I might just have to, balance that a little bit, do a little bit of both. But yes, and who's your best waifu in P5, your personal opinion? My personal opinion is, if you pick any of the high schoolers, you're fucking weird. That's my real opinion, because I don't care if my character is a high schooler. I'm an adult, so I'm not fucking going, a Futaba waifu. No, that's fucking weird, because they're all like 15, 16 years. And don't hit me with the bullshit. No, we gotta hit the FBI open up button. Don't hit me with in Japan, the age of consent, in some counties. No, stop it. That argument does not help you. It doesn't make you look any better. Stop it. So the answer is there's only 3 possible choices in P5, and luckily, regardless of everything, the doctor is always going to win. Some people pick Becky, very few people pick the reporter, but luckily, the doctor is the obvious choice if you're going to have a choice in P5. All right, so there are actually way more remaining. I was like, I'll make this video slightly longer, even though I'm not feeling so great. Maybe it'll make... And you know what? That last question did get my blood pumping, but there's too many questions. I can't answer them all this week. So I'm going to do this and one more. I haven't decided what the other one will be yet, but this is going to be the last two. And then actually, after these two, the spoiler questions will start for you guys. I've already answered all the spoiler questions on my end. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hiya, Cidus voice. I can't do a Cidus voice. The question is, do you think it's weird or possibly unfair to other players that the normal raids are different than the Savage raids? Not because of mechanics, but because some story things that pop up in the latest Eden raid, like E8. So people will never touch Savage, especially the last one in the tier. So it's worth mentioning that Savage raids are non-canon. Nothing that happens in a Savage fight is canonical to the story. So that's number one. So they're not missing things story related, but I understand what you're saying. You know, I think that this is a case-to-case question. I think the biggest case of blue balls was Stormblood. Exdeath was probably the least, the second least blue balls he won. Because we all knew Neo Exdeath was coming. It was obvious Neo Exdeath was coming as a Savage exclusive phase. But even still, Exdeath was satisfactory for Deltascape, even in normal mode. But you still were like, I know there's more, like, come on. Then it got really bad with Kefka and Sigmascape because of Dancing Mad in particular. Dancing Mad, you cannot just remove the end of Dancing Mad. You cannot just remove what comes with it. So Kefka was really noticeable. It's like on so many levels, and that felt unfair. And then I'd say Omega felt the most fair. Like, that felt the most like, okay, they've done it all they can. And nobody possibly could have predicted what the Savage would look like. And the Savage kind of undoes all of Omega's character progression anyway. So it works out kind of better that it's not there. So yeah, I think this question is case to case. I think the specific thing with E8 that you're referring to, while it's really cool, it isn't that important to the story. The most important thing is the story happen in normal. So I think with E4 and E8, right now they've got a good balance. E4 is kind of hard to screw up, and E8 does and what it needs to do in normal to get the actual story across. But you know, ask me again for E12 and I might feel the reverse. It might actually be one like Sigmascape again. So we'll see. Next one, hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hey there, hi there, ho there. What you call me. How you doing, Mr. Haps? First time asker, long time watcher. You know the drill. I sure do. Always been curious what a lot of 14 tubers' favorite story bits. So who are your top 5 favorite characters from Final Fantasy XIV, excluding the player character, of course? And if you're feeling it, what's your favorite moment in the story so far? I'm personally a sucker for, and luckily it cuts off there. This is going to get, I guess I'll put this towards the end for the spoiler section. So, there is technically, it's like a 4-year-old spoiler in this question, but I'll take this as the opportunity to get myself in the habit of that spoiler thing we mentioned at the top. So if you're watching at this point in the video, until this thumbs up comes up again, it's spoilers. And this is the start of that spoiler section, and maybe it's the end too. Maybe there's no more spoiler questions, but let me answer this now that the spoilers are in full effect. I guess even my answer technically was going to be spoiler territory no matter what. Top 5 favorite characters? Dude, I don't even know. I don't really think of characters in like games and shows in the same way as other people do. I just care about how they fit in any particular scene. Doesn't mean I don't have favorites. Like, I don't have characters I really like or that I really resonate with. You know, Dad Cred and actually a lot of the Scions and Shadowbringers bring a lot more to the table than they previously had. Alphino has gradually transformed from being a very naive character to someone who's still kind of naive, but a little bit more cautiously. Alice is, you know, front thinking, how do I say it? Forward thinking, I suppose, in regards to not so much, you know, being revolutionary in the way she thinks, but more so thinking about what the next thing she has to do is, and nothing's going to stop her. I actually really like the Scions. You know, obviously Emmett Selk as a villain is very, very highly rated. I'm one of the few people that actually somewhat enjoys the maniacal craziness of Xenos. I tend to really like really crazy characters like the Joker, Xenos. You know, yeah, I'm putting them in the same. They're both maniacal. It's unfortunate that we don't get to interact with Nail/Eula as much as we should, because she is maybe more I think actually is more batshit crazy than Xenos is. So I probably would have liked her a lot. Even, you know, thinking back to 1.0, it's just, the story patches really, there's not much to say about the 1.0 story patches. As for a favorite moment in the story, I actually, going back, I really like the Shadowbringers climax. I feel like it's kind of an easy answer, though. I actually really like the initial ending to Stormblood in the where Xenos offs himself. essentially. It obviously, you know, with the way things have panned out since, that scene has kind of diminished because the impact of that scene has just been, you know, thrown out the window kind of with all that's happened. But in the moment that I watched it, I wasn't expecting him to do what he did. I wasn't expecting that to pan out that way at all. So I'd say, you know, outside of taking the Shadowbringers climax as an easy moment to pick, I'll probably take that second, the Stormblood climax initially in 4.0. I keep accidentally downvoting these, and I have to undownvote them, and I feel bad. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey, Haps. Hope you enjoyed Eden and Ruby. Slight Shadowbringer spoiler question. Oh, you know what? If I'm putting this at the end, then I don't need to, you know, take it off the screen or anything. It's just getting edited towards the end with the spoiler question. In the opening cutscene with the fall of Dalamud, we see the Warriors of Darkness from the first. So are they originally from the Sorcery Center? Oh, no, you've got this way backwards. So... you're talking, so in that, we are that Warrior of Light. Derplander in all of the trailers is you. It's us. I barely even consider this a spoiler question, but I'll still throw it in the spoiler section because I've already committed to that. No, we are that Warrior of Light and his band of fellows. At least the legacy players are. In the subsequent ones, that's us. Derplander and the Warriors of Darkness are designed after those characters. They are not them, though. So hopefully that makes sense. They just decided to make the Warriors of Darkness modeled after those Warriors of Light from the trailer, because it's a nice dichotomy to the fact that they are not those characters. They are not those same heroes, at least not when we first meet them. And then it kind of lends more credence to certain story beats in Shadowbringers when you have these characters that are clearly designed after those characters from the trailers. It shows such a fall from grace compared to what our tales are on the source. So hopefully that answers that question adequately. All right, there's actually so many questions. This one's a little bit longer, so I'm just going to take this. And if I didn't answer your question, I apologize, because the spoiler questions will come next, and those I've already answered before this. So there's so many. You got to try again next week, I guess. Try to get them in, like, maybe earlier. Or I don't know. I don't know how YouTube determines what order it shows these to me in, but that's the best I got. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Do you Howlin? Dude, I saw Howlin. I thought it said Howlin, and now I want Howlin Rays. First time asker. This is a tough question. I'm not sure they have a good answer. Well, maybe it's not the best last question then. We'll see. Maybe some in the community might. This is, or should be, a healer DPS question. My wife and I... Oh, no. As soon as it says my wife and I, and it's this type of... Uh-oh. This is a divorce waiting to happen. But I myself have gotten in Savage raiding again as Ninja. My wife doesn't really do roulettes and normal raids as a scholar. Mostly does roulettes. I see that's a typo. I wanted to get her to do more damage while she was healing to try and get her to normalize it, but she's blurry resistant. I've given her subtle hints like linked her guides, but recently because of her lack of DPS, she's gotten berated several times in game by other players, and it's really put her off of doing things outside of a set group of friends. It's happened 3 times now. Of course, when it does, person is reported on blacklist. It's not like it's, hey, could you do more DPS? It's more like straight up harassment. Since this, of course, I stand up for her, but at the same time, someone who has played since the beta, I can understand where they might be coming from. Any advice? And I should clarify, I think you and I both know if we're progging on something, everyone needs a DPS, and she knows that too. She's just not good at it. Doesn't feel comfortable with it. Is there any advice? So here's the thing. In all of what I've read, not once has she asked for advice, is what I'm getting out of this. I could be wrong. Which immediately leads me to just say the blacklist is really your only option. Listen, I am avidly for healers DPSing. I hate seeing healers stand there and cast nothing or cast a heal every time somebody loses a fraction of their health. I can't stand it. But if somebody told me that's what they were going to do, I'd just be like, okay. I would never like invite them to like prog or anything like that. It would never happen, because for me, it's not so much a sign of not being willing to DPS. It shows that you're not really capable of thinking about 2 things at once while you're doing the content. So when there's like really in-depth mechanics, I'm not even 100% confident that said individual would be able to heal and do the mechanics at the same time, let alone then throwing in DPS on top of that. But I will say that if she's just doing casual content, like, yeah, I get it. It sucks. It's easy to get berated. But if she doesn't want to change that, I mean, that's ultimately life. Sometimes people don't want to change things. They want to enjoy things at their own pace. And yes, it's an online game. It's an MMO. So, you have to consider other people's playtime. But, dude, this is not a discussion or argument you want with your wife. take it from someone who has at least done some like casual content with my girlfriend over like years and years ago. Anytime I would push that, I would be like, nope, I've made a mistake. I've made a mistake. Let her do what she wants. I don't care. I don't care. And even though she did actually try to do things like DPS, when she died, she'd get really frustrated because she was trying to, you know, is basically in the same boat, but like at least, you know, trying a little bit. But it was, you know, it's you don't want this. You don't want this. The second she asks for advice, this whole conversation changes. I think you've been taking the right steps if she's asking for it. But if that's just not what she wants to do, it's not what she wants to do. And unfortunately, if it leads to dealing with harassment and it actually affecting the enjoyment of the game and the unwillingness to change states, then it's an unfortunate reality. But it's gonna happen, you know. So yeah, I don't think this is the answer you wanted, but it's the answer you needed to hear. Because I'm trying to save this marriage right now. You better just tell her, oh, you know, it's okay. Those guys are jerks. Don't go down that route, man. You don't want the route 2. You don't want it. But that's gonna be the last question we answer. So I'll spoiler questions. Let me just do a cut real quick. All right, now that we're back from the spoiler questions, now I can wrap up the video. I gotta get used to that, guys. That's not gonna be clean, that transition. But I'm honest about those kind of things. So thank you everyone for asking questions. I'm sorry there's so many questions I couldn't get to. Some I've actually answered in recent weeks. Some that I actually didn't have good answers for. But there were a ton that I didn't even get to acknowledge. I apologize. You can try asking again for the next episode. Hopefully I get to them. You know, that's what else can I really say. And also, if you like this video, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And stay tuned for more weekly Q&As or ask your own questions or all that good stuff. And thanks to our patrons. Thanks to our patrons of Darkness, Khuja, Janova, and Kurenai Oni. And everyone who's not a patron, thank you to you too for watching and tuning in and all that stuff that I said at the start of the video again. But I feel like dying right now. I've put all my energy into this, and so I'm going to go eat, and then I'm going to go pass out. So thanks everyone for watching. I will see you in the next episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. And until then, take care.